The city's waking up, and so are the charts. Every move on this screen has a story. Sometimes it's hype, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's nothing at all. But if you look close enough, you'll see the rhythm behind it. No drama, no magic, just patterns, pressure, and people trying to make sense of it all. So let's take a look at where we're at and where this thing might go.
What's up, guys? Shoot, Chris. Let me post this link so that people can join if they'd like to. One sec. Just posted it. Alright. Perfect. And also, this music is off. I should change it. Still don't hear it. You guys can hear me, right? Oh, wait a sec. I don't know why. What's up, Steve? How's it going? Trying to get this thing working here. But for some reason I can't hear my music through my headphones. What's up, Aaron? How you doing? I guess I just won't have my own music playing back. Can you guys hear it? Let me get rid of this guest screen. And then mine should be at the top, but what the heck? Let me just test this real quick. I want to play back my stream through my computer, see if it's working right. Oh yeah, I can hear I hear it through there, so it looks good. Sweet. How you been, Aaron? It's been a while. You've been working a lot? I think this could be the bottom. Decent chance. Weight basis has been correct throughout the last year or so. It was calling for a top here with this deep correction. And then it was like we were kind of unsure when price rallied up to 120 when Bitcoin closed this CME gap. I was 50-50 whether this would break higher or head for one more low. But now we're at the point where if you're bullish, this is a good buy the dip opportunity. It is possible we have another leg down here. Instead of 3 ways, it's 5. I think before reversing. But for Litecoin here, it looks pretty good. Generally stocks, and we did get a rally today. But a lot of the time, previously, around this time of the year, September, October, Bitcoin and crypto kind of led the correction down. I think we can go back to previous cycles and find, I know for sure in 2020, if we overlay BTC here, one sec. As stocks were still correcting, Bitcoin started to break out in October, November, Q4. Like seasonally, Q4 has been really strong for the crypto markets. It has been when a lot of the time we've seen the highest percentage gains, like the Santa Claus rally. Markets have topped in Q4. The majority of these cryptocurrency bull market cycles. Like Q4 and Q1 have been historically pretty strong. I don't know how much to weight seasonality, but September has generally been either down or sideways month. This September has actually been stronger than most. What's up, Inevitable? How's it going? Andrew, good to see you. Oh, I can turn up. I'll just turn down the music. I can't even hear it. You've been around, Aaron. Price action has been frustrating. Yeah, metals are stealing spotlight. We're seeing like momentum shift. I have noticed a lot of sentiment though on crypto X or crypto Twitter where people are like giving up on crypto and rotating to stocks or metals. That's a good sign. Usually people do that prior to the crypto market moving. But yeah, silver and gold really strong. Stocks are strong. And this price action has been frustrating for 3 years for Litecoin. But eventually we should get a strong move that brings everyone back. And I do think whether this is the bottom or we have one more leg down, the overall idea here is correct. Or this is like nested consolidation structures. Before you get the volatility expansion and high time frame like breakout candle we've been waiting years for. It is very similar to this same exact structure. It does look like a 1-2-1-2. Like very similar, just in smaller time frame. And this just takes the 1618 extension, so it's giving a price target of like 250 to 270. Although historically what usually happens if this is going to play out like I think, because of all the other things we've talked about, fundamental analysis, on-chain analysis, you know, even like news potential catalysts like ETF inflows into this tiny asset with very restricted supply because it's gone sideways for so long. It should move more similar to Doge. I still think this is coming. But basically how wave basis is getting that price target is just taking, I would ignore the wick, but taking low to high. Kind of how Doge rallied to the 1618 here, found support around it. That's what it's doing. That's why it has this price target of around 280 bucks. Is it taking this? No. But it was going to make a proportional move to what Doge did. It rallied pretty quickly to this 3618 level, and then eventually, you know, 100x. Jon Snow, please revive any hope I have left for Litecoin. That's the way you should feel before the largest move. I mean, the hope really for me, and I've always thought about the crypto market the same, is I know at the end of the day, the only thing that will drive demand long term is monetization. It's just a money. It doesn't do anything else. It's not like a metal that can be demanded for its physical properties, like being used in electric components like gold or silver are used right. It's just a money. It's depending on the demand is solely long-term driven by monetary demand, and the value prop unique to proof of work monies is that it's potentially permissionless, so resistant to censorship and inflation tax. And given the world that we're heading into, I think this sector grows. And Litecoin's positioned uniquely as the second dominant Bitcoin chain, that if that's correct, if the demand for Bitcoin, not to gamble on it, but monetary demand increases, most of that demand is going to flow to Litecoin because it has network effect lead over all competition. Its blocks aren't full yet, unlike BTC, so it can monetize low value transactions up until blocks are full at like 2 million transactions a day or something. Right, and if this congestion happens on the BTC blockchain, you'll just continue to steal Bitcoin's remaining monetary users. So the only real bet on BTC from these prices is that somebody else is going to buy it from you at a higher price that doesn't actually need it. Or that it's going to be monetized at super high value ranges by, I don't even know. People think governments are going to settle in Bitcoin, but unlikely. Because they all benefit the most from the current setup of our financial system. I think we'll dump when the ETF news is, like when the ETF is approved now, maybe short term, but the way I think about it is that there's very little speculation around altcoin ETFs in general. I think regardless of what social media metric you use, search interest for Litecoin is at lower levels than, significantly lower levels than in 2021 or 2017 or even 2013. But its transactional or monetary dominance is stronger than any point in history, and its potential for growth is much There's much less risk, right? Early on, who knows what the second Bitcoin chain would have been. But now the odds are, I think, approach near 100%, given that it's 20x ahead of the main competitors like Doge and BCH. It's so hard for a chain like Bitcoin Cash or Dogecoin to grow against Litecoin. Just like it was so hard for all these Bitcoin chains to grow against BTC in the early days. I don't mean in price, but like in monetary relevance. It was impossible for Litecoin to establish any market share. So that's why it had to, like, it just went sideways. From 2013 to 2017, 2011. So that's like 6 years of no growth. It only became relevant post 2017, but price only declined since then. So it's funny. But yeah, I think ETF inflows will be stronger than expected. And we know that it's such a tiny asset on a relative basis. So you have to take those two things into consideration. The fact that it's $8 billion, like exactly today, with a very restricted supply because of how long it's consolidated. Like long-term holders have been accumulating coins that aren't for sale. And then you have transactional adoption that takes up a decent chunk of the supply. So their floating supply is pretty low. So if you see some catalyst, even if it's small, right? Even if Litecoin and ETF inflows are minimal, much lower than XRP, Bitcoin, and ETH, it's still a pump way harder. XRP is at a $200 billion market cap. Already had this pump. People are taking profits here that are up significantly. Almost no one's doing that with Litecoin. Plus it's starting at a way lower valuation than XRP did when it rallied. Like 6x lower. And assuming that's true, Litecoin has realistically has a much larger total potential market cap or total addressable market. So I think you'll get reflexive momentum if you see relative outperformance, because it should be the part in the cycle where people are paying attention to crypto, and there's just not much else out there that has a compelling story. Most everything in the top 20 already rallied or rallied really hard in 2021, so there's extensive sell pressure just like Litecoin had in last cycle. Wasn't able to break its all-time high. So to me, we just need a catalyst, even small ETF inflows, and then momentum will drive it higher. And if we get the fundamental piece, or if Bitcoin's going to have a final rally, and given the on-chain potential demand from 250 million plus people that have exposure, and potentially, 300-400 million people if this does rally, I think with roughly 400,000 transactions that can go through the chain a day, it's not going to take much to drive fee levels higher, and if that happens, if Bitcoin rallies and does have a blow off, I think Masters price targets become realistic, because in that scenario, if what I think is going to happen, fees rally to new all-time highs, Litecoin will likely steal and pass BTC and daily monetary users, maybe in total real transaction volume too. And then narrative will flip hard, because Litecoin will be rallying. From that alone, just transaction migration, I think Litecoin can pump 10x. But if you have ETF inflows behind it and the change of narrative, it can be very extreme. We'll have to see if Bitcoin can rally again. I think it will. I still think we're gonna get a blow off. Yeah, I think this dip to 100 has to be the final dip for sure. I mean, if this is right, if it continues to be accurate, then this is a nested setup. You'd expect a wave 3 of 3, potentially of 3, to be near vertical, and it aligns with everything else, right? Litecoins lack speculative demand. That's the only thing really pumping this market. It grew the most out of any other chain in terms of daily users and monetization, but it moved the least. That's, you can tell this market's almost entirely driven by speculative flows. But yeah, assuming that that's correct, you likely get a major extension out of here. I think it just blows through all-time highs. You know, if it does get this high time frame breakout. XRP rallied straight to the highs in 3 weeks. I think it would blow past. Capital will concentrate. I mean, it should steal a lot of money from other altcoins if it moves quickly and the narrative changes. LTC BTC could be bottoming here. We're at a super interesting point against all these pair charts. Like nearing the apex of this consolidation structure against altcoins, the broader altcoin market. Staying like against Cardano. Against a lot of these charts, right? It's been this large volatile range and compressing here. And I think when it breaks, given everything we said before, it's like one of the few that hasn't broken out. And is the most fundamentally undervalued relative to its future potential. I'm pretty confident that you will see concentration into this and like when sucking liquidity out of a lot of other coins. Just like Bitcoin has historically done. You bought in the 40s and 50s. Yeah, most new people will come in again after that first initial move. So if you were here in 2017, right, most people heard about it here after this initial pump. And that's why nobody's heard about Litecoin for the last 8 years. They've been distracted by other stuff because there's no marketing for it. You'd have to find it on your own. You'd hear about Bitcoin, Solana, ETH. Everyone will hear about it above $400. Yeah, but there's a lot. Bitcoin Trash said ETH and Bitcoin dumped after the ETF news and then grew. But there's a lot more speculation around inflows into the ETH ETF and Bitcoin ETF. A lot of people were anticipating it and talking about it, thinking it would moon the price. There's like just the Litecoin community talking about it, and there's not this huge expectation of price mooning right out of the gate. But we're at a, it can do that, right? We're at a point of historically low volatility. It doesn't take much to decide direction from here. XRP looks like it wants to break down. Maybe one more rally. And come back down to the lows here. Yeah. 138 billion. Or like $2. What is this? Yeah, like $2. 215. So I can break out while XRP dumps. And then what does that do for narrative and momentum? These markets are so driven by momentum, but once you get so high in market cap, it takes way more people to move the price. You have to create larger and larger pools of capital to continue the momentum. That's how Bitcoin survived despite weakening monetary dominance. Is it just attracted this super large money? Sailor, right? Sailor's bought more Bitcoin. I think like 5-6 times more Bitcoin than Litecoin's entire market cap. I mean, he holds 70 billion, but I think his like net inflows of buying Bitcoin is like $50 billion worth. Litecoin's never attracted that money. It really just has low value range monetization and like smaller accumulators that are like 10,000, 100,000x less than Michael Saylor's type of buying. Yeah, I don't think the risk of going to zero is high for a lot of these coins. Something that's shown no growth over the years, assuming this demand holds, which it basically has. It's never gone down. I think the risk of Bitcoin Cash going to zero is high. Same with Dogecoin. It's held on belief. Yeah, well, that's hindsight's 2020, right? If the reason you bought Litecoin for Bitcoin was based on sort of the same reason I did, was because I saw no more fundamental growth potential. I thought inflation would drive Bitcoin to 100K, but I thought the migration during that time period from higher Bitcoin fees from ordinals and runes, which did happen, would drive Litecoin growth much faster than Bitcoin's, and that is what happened. Even though the price didn't move because, you know, Saylor and ETFs bought so much Bitcoin that it outperformed. I don't think you can be mad at yourself if on the fundamental side what you expected to happen actually happened. But run the simulation 100 times. You know, that it might not always happen the same way. To me, it was always Litecoin has 100x potential. Bitcoin has to rally on speculation alone. And I'm not going to make a bet just on the idea that somebody will be fooled into buying this thing at a higher price than I did. I don't think that's smart. I think the way you make money long term is by not getting distracted by popularity contests, buying things that are undervalued based on your understanding, and letting it play out. Like a lot of people made money in Solana meme coins, or a few people did, and yeah, in hindsight, if you knew some of those would pump 100x, you would have done well, but I don't know. I don't even think it's that rewarding by getting lucky in the Ponzi casino. Like, what did you know that other people didn't in memes or Bitcoin that rewarded you? If it's, oh, I just bought into hype and sold hype at a higher price. It's like, great. Yeah, this cycle has been the hardest because it's gone the longest, and instead of like 2 years of consolidation before this quick bull market that we saw in 2020, it's been 3. But had you just bought Dogecoin and been accumulating down here, assuming you had some thesis that it was going to rally and good reason for it, you would have done way better than everyone else, even though they would have made fun of you for a long time. But I think Litecoin has a way stronger fundamental case. It's way easier to see. I mean, the only assumption you have to make is that demand for Bitcoin's security model will increase. And I think that's reasonable to assume given what's going on in the world. And then you have to assume that Litecoin will continue to steal Bitcoin's market share at higher and higher value ranges, which is also reasonable because of the network effect lead and historically how monetary network effects work. It's just Litecoin has 20x the utility of something like Bitcoin Cash and Doge because 20 times more people accept it. And Doge doesn't do anything meaningfully different than Litecoin. Bitcoin Cash has this existential threat of ever increasing blocks if anyone ever actually adopts it. So that's why I think you see this happening and will continue. So I don't know. Nobody else sees it that way. I think the majority of people just assume something that's totally irrational, that governments will adopt Bitcoin, or that it'll just keep going up forever because it has in the past. But they're focused on the wrong market, the wrong set of people that would actually adopt permissionless money. Yeah, Aaron, I do think people that have been stuck here will likely sell early. It depends on how fast this moves. But you have PTSD. But it's so, like, the people holding that will sell is so small relative to the potential capital coming in. Right? If they can drive Bitcoin from $1 trillion asset to like a $3 trillion, $4 trillion asset with not as much supply constriction, right? There's so many people trading this. It takes a lot of money to move it versus something that's been going sideways for so long that has a restricted supply. Like, to pump Litecoin to 0.25 Bitcoin would probably take less money if it happened in 3-4 months than it took for Bitcoin to move up to 120, 150K. right? The total net inflows for Litecoin to get to the same price of Bitcoin. So this is really just the last person bidding. You could just have overwhelming bids and no asks, and price can just gap up super high, go into price discovery. Nobody's selling. Can reach extreme market caps. The same way meme coins on very little volume went to multi-billion-dollar market cap valuations. For a short amount of time, it can happen, and it didn't even take that much money to do it. In times of mania and vertical price and a realization that Litecoin's second Bitcoin chain, you can just so much rotation into Litecoin over a short amount of time. Yeah, master's price targets might seem crazy, but they can actually happen. I don't know about the 84K stuff, but I think it definitely can break all-time highs in Bitcoin terms. It will be a lot easier for all the long-term holders if we do get this historical major move within a couple months. Right, for XRP and Doge, it was like 60 days. This is the move you want to capture anyways. If you get something like this, it doesn't matter if there's another leg higher. This equivalent would be like to 3-4K for Litecoin. Becomes a lot easier. What's harder is if this doesn't do that and it grinds up and just goes longer, then it's much harder for long-term holders to stay in it. But I lean towards the idea that it's literally vertical because search interest and amount of people aware of it is so low. Supply is so restricted. If it moves against the rest of the crypto market when there's rotation, there's just going to be no supply to fulfill demand. Price just has to move. Yeah, I know, Aaron. The same thing's happening to a lot of my friends. I see it so strong. For me, I have a lot of conviction because I know the total addressable market potential is as much as Bitcoin. So to me, it's like buying Bitcoin at 400 bucks. And I was getting involved around that time. But it's like buying, to me, it's like buying Bitcoin if it had an ETF launched at $400, opening up huge amounts of capital to potentially buy it. Plus, it has growth potential of surpassing BTC in like 3 to 6 months. But to me, it's the craziest setup, and I wouldn't chase anything else. I think upside potential, even if other things are moving, is so small relative to the second Bitcoin chain. And it's possible it never happens. That's fine. I would not chase anything else, especially if I had no understanding of what it is. This LTZ Doge chart is interesting. I thought it was going to play out like those early Bitcoin fractals, and it still can. It held the lows here. Doge might dump. Just to back, I move back to the highs 40%. Ceiling fan, you think you're gonna sell half your crypto once you break even? Yeah, selling, like, okay, it's made sense if you're like one, like, historically, to trade it. But volatility is compressing. If you get a high time frame breakout of like 50%, yeah, there will be pullbacks, but to call those correctly is so hard. Uh, like again, if we're gonna get a move like Dogecoin had, which I think is possible, yeah, you could sell here and buy back, or sell here and but unless even if you're a really good trader, predicting this is the odds of you getting it right are so wrong. Or you'll sell maybe towards the highs, and then it won't go back as far as you think, and you'll just be waiting and get front run and then miss the move. So I don't know. I wouldn't try to trade it. Even a lot of the successful traders have the majority of their positions that they plan to scale out of towards the top because they're not even confident. Nobody. Yeah, that's gambling. I saw there was a new Litecoin treasury company. A smaller one in Germany, but people are starting to notice this guy. I don't know. I think they're a pretty small company, but still, like there are people that are starting to notice. And I think most of them just see the transaction stats and think it's undervalued on a relative basis, which it is. I don't think they see the vertical kind of growth potential, not just in price, but in network activity. Something else that I wanted to, oh, yeah, and you can tell too, like merchants and customers and people that I know and have talked to who are always told to hold Bitcoin and spend Litecoin eventually realize that friction's higher than just staying in Litecoin itself. And you're slowly seeing this transition. It's on BitPay, it's on CoinGate. This is a natural process money goes through. It starts as a unique medium of exchange. There's some value prop why people want to use it over everything else. And then once it establishes enough demand that way, which is what Bitcoin did early on, right? People just used it because it was the only thing they could get or use to buy things they wanted on specific websites. They could only gamble with it on poker websites when gambling was illegal. So there's some unique value proposition that allows it to penetrate the market. But eventually it starts being looked at as a store of value. If you're going to need it anyways, might as well just hold on to it. And the unique value proposition of Litecoin is just that it's a cheaper Bitcoin. So why would you transfer back and forth and exchange it all the time? You wouldn't. You just start holding Litecoin. And then you start seeing early speculators like MEIP, Luxfolio, this small community. realize the potential. And then if you get some catalyst, it outperforms on a relative basis. The whole world can buy crypto like overnight, immediately, if they want. It's the perfect setup. You want like zero interest, zero awareness, right before a high time frame breakout, right when crypto markets start going vertical, and people will buy what goes up the most and what people are talking about. And then if you have a convincing narrative that's backed by historical data, you can convince. You can overturn the dominant Bitcoin only narrative quickly. And that's what I think likely happens. I was trying to look at open interest. Open interest has basically come down and totally reset. It's back down to the lows. Funding rates are still below neutral. So definitely a point where we could have bottomed. This LTC-BT chart. Yeah, well, Doge BTC broke the all-time high, like on that first initial rally. And then retested it. Right, kind of broke through, or it went all the way back to its 2014 all-time high. And came back to test this area where price was capped multiple times. And then had a blow off. But if we look at the full price history of Litecoin, it's a lot different. I mean, the all-time high is like 0.05. And we like have been below the all-time low for a period of months. But I do think Litecoin can break this all-time high. It should have, like, what would make the most sense to me is if it was going down against Bitcoin until 2017 and then slowly started grinding up, because this is what relative network activity was doing. Litecoin started close to Bitcoin, but Bitcoin didn't have full blocks, so Bitcoin was at like 100K transactions a day back in 2015. Yeah, 100K in 2015, and it had room for growth. There's no way for Litecoin to compete. Litecoin's basically where Bitcoin was at in 2017. But most traders do not see this because they see a long-term downtrend. They don't see any sort of catalyst to break it out. But technical analysis works until it doesn't. I think you can't ignore the fundamental side. So it literally can break all-time highs and go to 0.25 or something. The volume on the low. Well, this is weird. I think because it's, I don't know, it's using Vantage and Bitstamp. This volume's messed up. The volume on the Bitcoin pair is pretty low. been trailing off. Really, you're just seeing like a lot of BTC USD volume, people just trading against the dollar, and you're not seeing much pair trading. I think it's better. More people are just trading everything against the dollar. Better to look at this. And Litecoin's volume's been contracting since 2017. But you can notice the volume on the upside is way more significant than the volume on the downside. And that's what on-balance volume tracks. Right? It just depending on what candle you're using, like monthly, weekly, daily. If it's a green candle, it'll add the total volume to this chart. So the higher the volume, and if it closes green, the higher the rate of increase, and it's just cumulative. So on balance volume on the monthly time frame is at new all-time highs, or basically broke new all-time highs and came back. But definitely more volume on the time frame, or on when it's going up, than volume on the way down, which is typically bullish. Right, sellers are getting weaker, and you can even see it in the price chart. Right, this sell-off, like Litecoin's been above $100 longer than it has been. Even back here, see these deep, nasty corrections. And I think finally all these moving averages crossed on the weekly time frame. So the short term moving averages finally crossed on this last, I think this is a 200 week, the purple one. Should be, yeah. So 50 week is yellow, 100 week is red, 200 week is purple. Definitely have had a shift. You can tell in terms of interest in Litecoin from larger money that they became interested throughout this period. I don't really ever use Ichimoku. I know there's a lot of smart Ichimoku guys, but this looks a lot better than something like Dogecoin, where it's underneath this cloud, and where this like Chiku span is going to potentially meet and go back under the price. There's not really that much resistance above these highs. $56 tries to get a bonus? I don't know. If you're filling up for it, you should do it. Binance. Yeah, I think Binance is used by a lot of Asian institutional people as well. Yeah, I'm really interested, Aaron, you talk about like gold and silver. Like this can happen to Bitcoin if it fails to gain monetary traction. It can go through a period of a long drawn out sideways market. I'm interested in what happens to the metals after. I don't think they're going to be remonetized. Maybe governments try to force people to use gold and silver for trade or force a new monetary standard, but to get there it takes so long, and I don't really see in mostly an information-based economy people using gold and silver to transact. So it's weird. This chart looks bullish. But what happens after? A blow off and a forever crash? If it doesn't, like people are betting on this being remonetized, gold and silver. It still has a lot of monetary demand, but could also be a giant bubble, right? It's entirely speculative based on what happens historically, but historically they didn't have natively digital money. Are we repeating the April top? I don't think so. I actually think something more like what Credible put out is correct. I know a lot of people wouldn't agree with this. I think something similar to this into spring. And if Bitcoin does this, I'd be so surprised if Litecoin does not become the dominant Bitcoin chain and doesn't move 100x. Like if this actually happens, which I think is most likely and what I've been betting on from the beginning. Man, like a true blow off that we haven't seen since 2017. I know it's only a 2x move, but that's a massive amount of money that can both rotate and migrate to Litecoin. This place will be absolutely insane. It's just been so long that people have forgotten what it's like. So maybe gold and silver cool off for a bit. I don't know. Look, it's already happening to gold, and the Fed's not going back to QE. I think it's the expectation that they're gonna have. You really just need the expectation, and that's what you're already seeing in the gold and silver markets. Right, stocks look the same. It's just not happening in crypto yet. But it doesn't mean it won't. Like, LTC against gold looks interesting too. It's this like giant descending wedge. Like going against everything looks the same to me. Right. The wick to body trend line. I think watching Raoul Pal's recent videos, that's like all they track is the global macro liquidity conditions. And the market always lives in the future. It's like 6 months ahead. But look, I mean, the rate of rise in equities right now, offloads, is greater than anything since 2009, I think, in percentage terms. Even like, it's more strong than it's like just as strong after they printed what trillions of dollars after COVID, right? But it's happening from a higher, happening from higher prices. There's a lot of money out there. It doesn't take much to rotate into crypto to move it vertically. Yeah, it'll be harder for central banks now, and that's probably why they respond late and things can deteriorate. So it's gonna be weird for sure over the next few years. But if you trade this correctly, if this does do what I think it will do, you won't have to worry as much as other people. But we'll see. See if this plays out. Should be quite soon. If this correction is finished now, then if this is going to start, this impulsive move, it can go sideways for a bit. But once the rally does start, it should be really quick. And it seems like the ETF inflows will likely be the catalyst, not the news. I'd expect volume to break the 2017 highs at a point when there's far less supply available than back then. Miners dumped so much supply. And Litecoin was not in the spotlight in 2021. You can see it here, right? Dogecoin had its massive breakout in volume. It might literally just be Litecoin pumping, kind of like XRP did back here. Alright guys, thanks for hanging out. I don't have much else to say. I will have an interview with Aztec and the LitVM people. I think it's October 7th for LitVM, so that's not next week, but the following week at 3 p.m. Let me see what day that is. It's the Tuesday, so a week and a half from today. I think Aztec before that, but I don't have a date yet. If you haven't read Aztec's article or bullish thesis for Litecoin, I think it's pretty good. He's really good at marketing. He's pretty creative. But his silver standard paper is pretty good. I would read it. Yeah, we're all gonna make it. I can't wait to release all the stuff that I have. I just want to do it into a price rally. Maybe people will pay attention then. Right now it's tough. But if this gains momentum like I think it will, then I think even institutional people will have to pay attention to the people that saw it earlier. And yeah, I'll see what the masses think. Right now it's just impossible to gain attention when there's very low interest. Number go up, yeah. I have all that stuff already on Apple Music and Spotify. Well, we have a lot still to go through. I haven't put everything up on here yet because I was waiting for the right time. The digital romance light the world on fire. I think I didn't have enough room to put that on here. Because it maxes out at 35. Bitcoin actually looks a lot weaker than Litecoin here. See what happens to Bitcoin dominance. But a lot of these fell on that second leg much harder than LTC. Time for blast off, friends. Alright guys, thanks for hanging out. I'll restart the 24/7 stream. Once there's more interest where we can sustain like chatting overnight with like Asian, Eastern world markets, so Europe and Asia. Thanks for hanging out, appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, this is the area to defend. It's where price found support. It didn't even wick through it like it did previously, because there's not that much leverage anymore. This is mostly spot buying. Rather than what we saw previously with these giant liquidation events. Yeah, Well, maybe no pre-ETF rally is actually good, right? I mean, most of the pre-ETF rally would just be front-running the ETF, and then if ETF inflows are minimal, then you could see hype die. It's better if there's no ETF hype and then inflows are actually a lot stronger than expected. And you get that reflexivity on the institutional side, which is where all the money is, really. I mean, all the money is in boomer accounts and institutions. And if we tell the story correctly, supported by this data, I think we'll convince a high percentage of people to not be Bitcoin only. So let's see if we can do that. Alright guys, I'll see you all maybe later tonight. I just felt like I didn't stream last night, so decided to do it today. But if anything happens, I'll be live again. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good Friday. Enjoy your weekend. If I don't see you later on. Inevitable says Litecoin's inevitable. One assumption, and it's inevitable. See you later. Good luck driving, Aaron. Have a good work day. Good luck getting the whatever 60 drives, 65. Get that bonus.